Welcome to the Heart of Your Money with Joe Yocavitch, president and founder of JML Financial Group. We hope today's show can help you on the road to your financial wellness. Now, here's Joe Yocavitch and the Heart of Your Money.
And I will tell you, I changed it up a little bit this year. I went with no grass, which is really crazy. A lot of dogs like my grass.
Oh, I see. So you have to do
Gotta get
away
away
with
with
that.
the grass, and we did mulch, and we have flowers and bushes, and it really is going to be spectacular because my landscaping guy came over and he started picking out, certain flowers I should be planting and colors and so forth. So I'm really excited about that for my opening of my home to the neighborhood, so to speak.
It's funny that you mention the flowers and the beds and the plantings because in my mind, thinking you got to have a good plan to get that yard the way you want it for the summer. And people take all this time, right? People love being out in the yard and getting this plan together, but it's really not that different than putting together a plan for your retirement.
That's exactly what it is. It really is funny how you spun that right down that road. My good friend Sigler would say, or once said to me, he says, people don't really care on how much you know until they know how much you know about them. And when you listen to that, I thought, wow, that's pretty. And I have these little sayings I have in my little book, and I always look at them and before I get on or when I'm talking to people. And really it's your point on, Sari. It's putting a plan together, making sure that the plan is flexible. It's not just, one dimensional and just one thing. There's so many different things that are happening. And in my garden, it's the same way. I have bushes, I have colored flowers and different colors that bloom at different times of the year. No different than, your own retirement. And if it sounds like you came to the right place. Because that's what we do. We look at the big picture. We make sure everything is in place. We check off the boxes. And if you're not maxing out your Social Security or your pension, or actually looking at your Medicare, what it's going to be when you roll into retirement, not just, you didn't know this individual, but he was a good friend of mine. I called the other day, and every time I talk to him, he's always somewhat in a frenzy, and he's working for a big pharma company, and he's telling me about what's happening with, the Middle East because of the production of oil. We got in this conversation, and it was ironic, but, he was concerned about what was going on, and his company does a lot of the needing of oil. He uses a lot of material.
Like the petroleum?
The petroleum material.
Yeah.
He uses gloves and things of this nature. And they said, we're going to have a little shortage of this if this thing doesn't get, taken care of. We're not there yet, he kept on saying, but it feels like a little pre-COVID. And in what we do is we want to make sure we don't have a plan that's going to, you have an off-ramp, so to speak. I was just riding down a road thinking about it. At the same time I'm doing my flowers, I'm thinking, what happens if? Do you have a backup plan to what we do? And we always do that. We always give people an opportunity to have detours off their plan and to deviate on certain things that are happening because we never know. So the first thing we talk to people about, especially in our conversations, Sari, is healthcare. Healthcare is a big issue. And believe it or not, he said to me, I can't retire today. I have to wait another 18 months. And I said, why? Because the COBRA plan that will be having will take me through 18 months. So when I turn 65, I'll be on Medicare because the dollars that he's paying for medicine is quite high. So these are things that we talk to clients about all the time, Sari. It's really it's a lot of fun, but you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared having those type of conversations with clients, and they really truly appreciate that because you're not going in there with one idea and listen to me and it's just going to work this way. It doesn't work that way. You need to be diversified in your thought process, your communication skills with the individual, but making sure that they feel good about what they're doing. And that's the love of what I do, and I've been doing it for 40 years. 40. So you can tell I really like it, what I do.
Either that or you're crazy.
Or I'm crazy, yes.
One of those two. Either you love what you do or you're crazy to keep doing it. Talking about healthcare, I think that this is something that people tend to underestimate what they're going to need to pay for it and the amount of planning that goes into it when they're getting ready for retirement. Because everybody thinks about how much money they've got, right? I've accumulated $1 million. I'm ready to go. But there's so many other things to think about. Number one, healthcare.
Healthcare is like the number one priority when I'm talking to clients, when I sit down with them for the first time. It's our number one conversation with new clients. We look at healthcare costs and we look at Medicare, when's the starting point. And then also we need to look at income coming in, because again, this thing called IRMA, that again, it deals with your income that could determine how much you'll pay for Medicare dollars. And this is a situation where you have single or married, situations that, the pricing is different for both. And then you have to have concern with, how retirement trends need to be flexible. So you're looking at, when you're dealing with retirement, healthcare is number one, or one of the number one priorities. But again, right next to it, because of Medicare, you're looking at Social Security benefits and how that will be kind of dovetailed into the Medicare, and when do they start the Social Security situation? Is it for an individual? Is it for a couple? And you have to look at the numbers there, and we do crunch the numbers for them to let them know what would be the best situation for themselves and their family. And that's a big deal going to retirement, because in this case, you want to be as flexible as you can, but when you pick Social Security, you can't reverse it, immediately. You might have a year to do that, but normally after that, it's etched in stone what you're going to get for the rest of your life. So that's something that we always talk to people about. And then, not finally, but when we do a plan, and it's in my book, it's in some of my brochures, we do a diagnostic review. I mean, our first meeting is pretty simple. We meet with people, and we sit down with them, just like the way I got into business, which I'll talk about a little bit. People want to know, why do I been doing this for 40 years? But we offer a very simple diagnostic, pre-plan worksheet for someone to fill out on our website, and they could fill out the information. So it addresses the things that we're talking about, where the money's located. Is it in an IRA? Is it in a 401k? Is it in a Roth? Is it in an annuity? Do you have a stock portfolio? Are you going to get a pension? Are you adding Social Security? And when are you going to take Medicare, and how much you might be paying for that? So there's a lot of information that we put out there for the client to speak with us on. So it doesn't take one day to do all this with them. It takes a little while, but it's the conversations we have, make sure people are having a good, solid feeling on them for themselves on the direction they're going in, working with JML Financial Group. The biggest concern I want people to understand when they're sitting with me, we do the math for them. We do the math for them in retirement. It's not what you make, it's what you keep. And that's why there's always an exit ramp getting off. I mean, we're dealing with unpredictables that could happen, and you need to have a written plan if you need to take a detour. And if you don't have a written plan, you could be in serious, serious trouble. And for those of you that want to try to do it yourselves, good luck, because we find that most people do it yourself don't return the percentage of someone helping them do it. I have numbers, I tracked specifically for that. So it's really funny, but what we try to do is help our clients understand what's taking place and why we do what we do. And you asked a question a little earlier when you and I were talking off air, and a lot of people want to know, how did you get in the business, Joe Yocavitch? I mean, that's like 40 years. What was that about? You know what happened, Sari? I got into business, fortunately for me, with one of my good close friends. It was actually starting the business himself. He had his own career working with us. We were good friends. And, I thought about it for a while. And as I attempted to get all the licensing and so forth, I'm learning my profession as best as I can. But what happened was, crazy it may be, my mother and father were going through their own retirement. Now, I didn't know anything about this. I mean, I was just learning. I was really, truly a rookie on learning these things. And one thing led to another as I was finishing school, and I was working for some jobs I had, and it was pretty good jobs too. I worked in the casinos for a little bit and realized, that's not my profession. And that's where I went to work in down south with Merrill in Florida. But I got into business that way. But what I realized, being trained with some of the biggest companies on the planet, sometimes they don't train you with everything. They were more concerned about how we can gather assets, gather money for themselves and for us and for the company. But 40 years later, I realize no one ever talks about distribution, how to spend that money in retirement. And I was dealing with people that were in their 70s and 80s. In the meantime, my parents are going through this retirement thing, and I'm trying to, help them or at least find out what's going on. Don't you know, my dad retired. And
what was his profession, Joe?
My father worked in a very blue-collar job for a big company called Jack Frost Sugar in Philadelphia. And he worked there for 30-plus years. And he was a maintenance mechanic, or actually a millwright, they called him back then. So he really knew a lot about a lot of different things, electric, plumbing, and so forth. And make a long story short, he worked there for 30, 35 years. And, like normal, back in the day, there was no like 401ks and so forth. There was a pension, and there was Social Security. So the money conversation never took place. It really wasn't a big deal.
It was a much simpler time.
Oh, much
as we say back in the day.
Yes. And I think more people would like to have it that way.
I agree.
And unfortunately, now it's 401ks and 403bs and 457s. And now you have to be your own advisor for your own self. And that's, again, difficult as it may be because all the information's being thrown at us every day. So Dad worked, retired, and I didn't know the whole ordeal. All I know is he picked the highest pension plan that he could possibly pick, which would be normal situation. But he didn't know that through all the books of paperwork that it was given, he didn't realize there was an option where Mom would be part of the pension if something happened to him. And that made sense. But back then, nothing made sense. Nothing was really dictated, or nothing ever was brought to our attention, at least my mother's attention. So therefore, when my father was on pension and he retired for a year, don't you know, 1 year almost to the month, he passes from a heart attack. Young man, too, by the way. And this left my mother with no money coming in terms of pension. She had some savings that she worked part-time jobs, and she was forced to go back to work full-time. Now, lucky for me, my two sisters at the time lived with my mom when Dad died. So therefore, they were there to help her. And then very soon, she got sick. And not too far down the road, she passed. But I saw what Mom had to go through. And I saw what the stress that was put on her life and what happened to her. And I thought to myself, you know what? Just getting in this profession of mine, I was dedicated right there and then that should never, ever happen to anyone. I should be able to have enough information to sit down with somebody, to give them the options, give them the choices that they should at least be aware of. And I went about it very viciously to make sure that I knew and spoke with and got educated on areas that I knew that a lot of people were not being told about. Distribution planning, portfolio management, different buckets of money, tax strategy planning, things that, I didn't give it much thought when I was taking all these tests, but I continue to, really love the profession, and I did okay with it for a long, long time. I believe that, it was one of my big pet peeves was, I was a hardworking person, watching my mother and father work hard, and unfortunately not be around for me as long as I like them or would have liked them to be. But I did that in a very, understandable way. I really was committed to understand this and understand how distribution works, not just putting money away, but being able to share with people how to take the money out of the things that you have put together
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Integrity Alliance LLC, member SIPC. Integrity Wealth is a marketing name for Integrity Alliance LLC and is not affiliated with Integrity Wealth. Joe Yocavitch is an investment advisor representative and registered representative with Integrity Alliance LLC, a registered investment advisor and member SIPC. Integrity Wealth is a marketing name for Integrity Alliance LLC. Integrity Wealth is not an affiliated company. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of Integrity Wealth. The topics discussed and opinions given are not intended to address the specific needs of any listener. JML Financial Group does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstance. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Diversification does not guarantee a profit or protect against a loss in a declining market. It is a method used to help manage investment risk. Fixed annuities are long-term insurance contracts, and there is a surrender charge imposed generally during the first 5 to 7 years that you own the annuity contract. Indexed annuities are insurance contracts that, depending on the contract, may offer a guaranteed annual interest rate and some participation, if any, of a stock market index. Such contracts have substantial variation in terms, costs of guarantees, and features, and may cap participation or returns in significant ways. Investors are cautioned to carefully review an indexed annuity for its features, costs, risks, and how the variables are calculated. Any guarantees offered are backed by the financial strength of the insurance company. Surrender charges apply if not held to the end of the term. Withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income, and if taken prior to 59.5, a 10% federal tax penalty. Converting an employer plan account or traditional IRA to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences, including but not limited to a need for additional tax withholding or estimated tax payments, the loss of certain tax deductions and credits, and higher taxes on Social Security benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Rebalancing, reallocating can entail transaction costs and tax consequences that should be considered when determining a rebalancing reallocation strategy.